I just need to close the email, otherwise I will keep. Hello, welcome everybody. Mario here, and it's good to see everybody back. And now we start this new series about the marvels of Sicily, starting from the marvels of Palermo. And so last Sunday there was a free tour about some of the off the beaten tracks and lesser known marvels of Sicily, which are many more than the ones I explained. And today we gonna explore Palermo, especially some of the Baroque wonders and marvels of Palermo. Palermo is a large city. It has over 1 million people. It has a very old and partially derelict and abandoned old center. The city center, town center of Palermo, is big, and it was partially abandoned after the war for a number of reasons. And so lots of properties, they look a bit run down. In the last 10 or 15 years, the city had increased a lot. Part of the city center is now only accessible by pedestrians during the day. So especially the main roads, the Cassaro and the Via Maqueda, the two main roads that cross central Palermo, are open to the pedestrians, and are nice and safe, and the city is really attracted a lot of tourists. Today we see one specific aspect of Palermo, which is the Baroque art, especially the 17th, 18th century, so the late Baroque. You have to think it from 1650 to around 1750, 1760. So that kind of era of the very rich and sparkling and ornate and elaborated Baroque. The very center of the city, which is here in this picture, it's so we go to Palermo here, which is the capital of Sicily, of the region of Sicily. And if you look at the map, it's very easy. Sorry, no, this is Google Map. I want to use Google Earth. Sorry. So it's very easy to spot the right center, which is right here, the two main roads. The ones that goes from the Palazzo Normanni, the castle, which is now the Parliament of Sicily, through the main gate, all the way down to the port. It's today it's called Corso Vittorio. It's dedicated to the King of Unified Italy, but the ancient name was Cassaro, from Arabic Al-Qasr, which means the fortress, because there was the fortress at the top. So this was the road from the center to the fortress. Then around 1598, 1602, this wider road parallel to the sea was cut, and this is basically the Via Maqueda, after the name of the vice king of the ruler from the Spanish crown of Sicily. Now, just to give you an idea of the rich history of Sicily, as we saw last time, Sicily had many populations originally at the time of before the Romans. Then, of course, the Romans conquered it, and then it fell under the barbarians, under the Arabs, and eventually there was a fight between the Arabs and the Greeks, the Byzantines, where the Normans around the 11th century that freed the city from the Arabs and then the region, and ruled Sicily for about 250 years, to leave then to the Svevi, which were the Germans, Frederick II, and eventually to the French, the Anjou. But Sicily never tolerated really all these rulers, especially the French, of course. And from the 1400s till basically the 1735, Sicily had been under the Spaniards, which about 2 decades when was under the House of Savoy at the beginning of the 1700s. And then after that, it became part of the kingdom of the two Sicily, the kingdom of Naples and Sicily, under the House of Bourbon, which were cousins with the French and descendants of the Spaniards one. So de facto, from the last 400 years, Sicily and all southern Italy has been under the influence of Spain. So certain cultural characteristics are common across other Spanish colonies, like Mexico or the Philippines or other territories in the world that were subject to the Spanish crown. Now, in the architecture, you could see that most of the city center looks like a sort of a river. They look like veins. You see that there's no one road parallel to the others, but then there's these two big straight roads that just cross. And we just start from this crossroads called the Quattro Canti, which is right here. I need just to find the way of placing us here. I'm sorry, no, it's not here. It's via Roma. It's right here, up here, sorry. This is the Via Maqueda here. Yes, right here, this is the so-called Quattro Canti, which are these four palaces, all the same. It's also known as the Theater of the Sun, because at any time in the day, at least one of the facades, it's lighted by the sun. And you can see it's basically a busy crossroads. Now there's no cars during the day. It has several decorations, especially from the bottom. It has the allegories of the rivers of the city, the four ancient rivers of the city, four Spanish rulers, four Spanish kings, and then the four patron saints of Palermo, which were Christina, Olivia, Agatha, and Nympha. Now, these four saints were the saints that were patron saints of Palermo at the time when this was built. And then later on came Santa Rosalia and the other patron of Palermo. So some cities have more than one patron saint. The facades were made at the beginning of 1600s. And we're going to start our tour right from here, right up the road. Where is it? Right up the road here. There is the Duomo Palermo. Let me just move back here. And so this is the Teatro Massimo. No? That's the Duomo, the cathedral here, the Duomo Palermo. And then up the road, that's basically the Palazzo dei Normanni, the Norman's Palace, which was the old Arab fortress, and today still the main political building of the city, with the regional assembly Palermo, of Sicily is. And these are the two main roads, Cassaro and Via Maqueda. Now, as you can see from above, there's a big church right at the corner, and it has also half of the facade kind of, which is basically the side of the church. If we go, we go up here? No, we can't go up here. If we go right here, yes. Here we could just see the facade of the church here. And then there's another side that is made symmetrical to the one that goes on the quattro canti. And this is the church of the Padre Teatini, and I'll give you a bit more information in a second. I just want to play a little bit of music as an introduction of traditional Sicilian music right in the
Abballati, femminische maritati, caso una ballati, buono, non ve canta e non ve so. Abballati, femminische maritati.
Just a little music intro. I did this festive music of traditional tarantella-like song. Abballati, dance, or every woman married and unmarried. If you don't play, and if you don't dance hard enough, and you have to dance hard enough so you break the floors. So the church, the large church right at the very heart of Palermo, was actually built at the beginning of the 1600s by the Teatini fathers, which is an order established in the second half of the 16th century. They started to build large churches in the 1560s, 1570s. There's one in Rome, Santa della Valle, there's several others. These ones came to Palermo at the end of the 16th century, invited by the city council from Naples, which was part of the same kingdom at that time. And the church had already been there, the church of San Giuseppe dei Teatini, San Joseph, and was rebuilt entirely by the Teatini in a very grand Baroque style. You can see the tall and large dome. The dome reminds a lot of the domes of the Amalfi Coast with those tiles. The church is quite a large church that has a beautiful painted ceiling with stuccos, with gold, with tens and tens of colorful figures of saints. Now, this is it's kind of a classical church for the Catholic Reformation times. You know that at the beginning of 1500 there was the Protestant Reformation, Martin Luther and the other Reformed churches, which refused all the luxury and the gold and the glitter and the images inside churches. The church is very plain. Everything was based on the gospel and everything else was needed. But as a contrary, the Catholic Roman Church, instead of trying to consider maybe we should go more sober, decided to go the opposite way to get even more, grand, even more rich, and even with more gold and statues and columns and figures, really because they wanted to talk to the heart of people, while the Protestants were trying to talk to their minds and try to transform Christianism in a religion you can fully rationally understand and practice. On the other side, Catholic Church wanted you to understand almost nothing. They wanted you to believe deep with your heart and to feel the presence of God deep in your heart without questioning anything. And that was Catholicism was about, basically, in the 17th, 18th century. And this type of art served that purpose, as you could see. This is a picture from the center of the dome, from down to up, and you can see how rich and colorful. And of course, this is only inspired after Roman and Neapolitan Baroque. The style was developed in the first decades of the 17th century. All the artists that were here, they're mostly Neapolitan artists. There's only a few, I'm sorry, mostly Sicilian artists. When there would be an artist not from Sicily, I will mention them. Most of them are minor local artists which work there, trying to imitate the art that was made in Naples and in central Italy at that time. This is the bell tower, which is very peculiar. Is made with this stone is very ornated at the top with this polygonal topping with the bells that you could see. You could see actually from the side of the building. And inside there's several altars. Some of them, they're really over decorated. This is like a marble lace. This is all inlaid marbles, and it's a very ornated, very complex detail. And there's several churches which has this kind of work, not just in Palermo. You can find it in the Baroque in Venice. You can find it in Rome, in other cities. But in Sicily, it's particularly rich. And there are other churches like this in Palermo. There's several other buildings, but I've just made a selection that I think is more unique to Palermo. One of the things that really gets me about this church is the huge basin for the holy water, where there is this angel like diving down with a basin of holy water, surrounded by clouds just to get it to you. It's really like an incredible effect. And there's just the door. You walk in and you have this angel like flying down onto you to give you water. And that's again the church, which is grand. The color scheme is a bit darker than other churches. And of course, this is right in the center of Palermo. Now, if you walk in certain neighbor of Palermo, like Alza, Capo, and a few others, each neighbor had their own name. Some of them really look round down. It might kind of put you off a little bit, but really you have to, get a little bit deeper behind the surface in order to get to the real city. This is La Gancia. Of course, is the Christmas procession that they do with the baby Jesus of La Gancia. La Gancia is an ancient church. Most of these churches were established in the 11th, 12th century, and then they have been refurbished several times, especially in the 17th century, the ones that we're seeing today. Many of them in tradition of shoulder-borne procession of different saints, different festivals. This is the one of the baby Jesus. And the convent of La Gancia, it's very important. It played a key role in the city of Palermo in the 17th century, because nearby there was the tribunal of the Holy Inquisition, as I will mention later. And also there was an episode which was particularly important in 1860. In April 1860, a group of about 25, 30 patriots, which wanted the unification of Italy, the time where Italy was still divided into many kingdoms, tried to start an uprising against the King of Bourbon, and they were one of the and this was taking place from the friary, and the friars were all like supporting that, except one friar who called the police. So basically, or told the police that what they were doing. So all these guys were slaughtered by the police, except two that managed to hide in the crypt of the church among the deads. And then I'll tell you how they escaped, which is quite an adventurous and ingenious way. So from the outside, the church has the look of the the Romanesque Norman period times of the 10th, 11th century. Maybe if you see it like that from outside, you wouldn't really be attracted to enter if you are looking for Baroque stuff. But inside, it's a complete different game. It was completely refurbished in the second half of the 17th century. And this is one of the churches that had the stuccos and the decoration, some of the clear, white, bright, which we love at Palermo. Some of the stuccos were made by Giacomo Serpotta, of which you will hear a lot. This is the giant pipe organ, the beautiful ceiling, the images of saints on the side. And then right on the side of the church, there's this marble slab, Buca della Salvezza, Hall of Salvation. It's not salvation of the soul, it has nothing to do with the spirit. Is a commemoration of the two patriots that managed to escape through a hole that they made after the police had gone in April 1860. I told you about the patriots. These two managed to bury themselves, go in the crypt and hide themselves underneath the corpses that were there. And then after half a day or so, once it was clear, they perch a hole into the wall and they run out. And so ever since this was covered by marble slab, and that the hole is there. Now, ornated pulpit, ornated altar. This is the altar of the Ecce Homo. There's a very creepy wooden statue of Christ with all injuries and blood. I didn't find a better picture of this, but it really kind of looks like a real suffering person. It again is another element of that particular time of the Baroque, where has this fetishes for death and suffering and pain and physical injuries. It was also a very gruesome age. Gruesome age in the sense that there were black deaths, plagues, a lot of violence from the rulers, which was the Spaniards at the time, which also imposed the Spanish Inquisition over Sicily, especially, and southern Italy. In southern Italy, especially, the Inquisition wasn't that bad because it was the diocese Inquisition, but in Palermo there was a Spanish Inquisition, which was as bad as we think it was from the movies or from the novels. Now, this church also has a very peculiar chapel, and I can't remember the full name of the chapel. Yeah, it's the chapel of the Virgin from Guadalupe, which is run and it has been restored recently by by an association of the Spanish community in Italy, the Obra of the Spanish Church or something like that, which is based in Rome and run two churches in Rome, but also sponsored the complete restoration of this chapel. Now, this is the chapel before it was restored. You could see it was kind of a bit ran down. The chapel is a little jewel. It's entirely covered in marbles. He has a beautiful statue of God there with all the glare of the rays of lights. But you could see there were several damages in the frames, missing parts. The angels were all run down. There were a lot of frescoes damaged due to poor insulation and being wet and abandoned. Now I'll just stop this because it makes us like but seasick after a while. This is how the chapel looks today. It was restored, I think, in 2019 or so, a few years back. The paintings were restored. Everything was restored to its former glory. Also, the wooden statue of the Virgin of Guadalupe, entirely paid for by the Spaniards. Now, one of the peculiar aspects of the decoration of some of the chapels and churches we're about to see today. It's that most of them were made by one family and especially by one artist, Giacomo Serpotta. Serpotta was between 1750 and 1650s and 1730s was the main artist to make stuccos and statues. He had a complete different vision of how art should be done inside churches. Most people there back then, and the church itself, wanted marble because marble has a very long-lasting life. It's harder to make, but once it's done, it's basically there forever. It's shiny. It has that kind of solidity and quality and firmness that they wanted, and also the kind of shiny end, which of course stucco doesn't have. You can see it in this detailed picture. But Serpotta insisted, and he made all of his decoration in stucco, which allowed him to achieve effects that were not that easily achievable in marble, also because of the time required and the workforce. So at the fraction of the cost, he made marvels. And especially if they were indoors decoration, that wouldn't be much of a problem with preservation. So some of the decorations here are made by either himself or they were like a group of 6 or 7 because the children, grandchildren, the cousins, the father, they were all part of a workshop, but the best parts were made by Giacomo. This is the angel. You see, this is before and after. This is actually marble. Some of the top decoration too. And then here you have a tomb of a noble Spanish lady with her 3 husbands and their children. There are several other tombs here, and one of them, a bit damaged, it's the tomb of Juan Lopez de Cisneros, which in the 1657 was killed by a man called Diego de la Matina, which was a prisoner accused by the Holy Inquisition unjustly. And it was like not the first time, it was the 4th or 5th time was under the court of the Inquisition. And during one of this questioning, which was private with the inquisitor, he managed to stab him to death or strangle him to death. He managed to kill him. And he was tied to a chair, as it was the custom back then, but he managed to free himself and kill him. Now, dedicated to this episode, which is very important in Sicilian history, there is a book by Leonardo Sciascia, one of the greatest Sicilian writers of the past century, and it's The Death of the Inquisitor. You will find it in English as well. This is the Italian version. And right around the corner, so we have to let me just see if I can find it like this. Oops. Okay. Because we are right. Let me just get the okay, let me just get I had the link, but I don't have the link here. Palazzo Misto, no, Palazzo Misto, Gancia. Okay, that's the Church of Santa Maria degli Angeli here, called La Gancia, this one here. Right down the road, the opposite is Palazzo Batelli, which is the museum we saw last time. And then right here, there is the palace, which was actually the seat. I think it doesn't show it here. I think it's right here, right down the road from the church. I'm gonna find it here. There is the palace that was basically the seat of the Inquisition. This is the room where the process of the Holy Inquisition took place. And then these are the graffiti. They've been recently, they've been discovered and restored. And there's tours that you could take. And there's a museum of the Inquisition, the Spanish Inquisition in Sicily. And you can actually take a tour where they explain you the significance. You see coraggio, courage prisoner's soul, and then all this mostly praying and images of saints and graffiti made by the prisoners. These are some of the oldest ones here, and this is during one of the tours. So there are several rooms, several cells that have all this graffiti about made by the prisoners, and there's also the room where La Mattina was kept before then being executed, which was a big shock. Now, from the Inquisition, we get to see the oratories, the 4 oratories that Serpotta made between 1670s, 1680s, and the beginning of the 1700s. And they're all white and clear, and they look really like pastries you want to eat. There's some similarity between the Sicilian pastry, the ricotta de cannoli, the cassata siciliana, all those beautiful pastries, and the stuccos that decorate these churches. I think Serpotta must have been really inspired by the sugar sculptures, which were something very popular in the 17th century at the tables of the rich and wealthy. Sugar was not a commodity at that time. People could not afford sugar. It was only in the 19th century that sugar became cheap. It was very expensive. So having a sculpture of sugar was something very luxurious. Even artists like Bernini made sugar sculptures, and Serpotta was kind of influenced by Bernini art. Although, as far as we know, he never left Sicily, and there aren't really many Berninis in Sicily at all. So how it got, like maybe through images, maybe through incisions, we don't really know how he really got that sense, or maybe natural inspiration. This is the church of Santa Cita or Santa Zita in the center of Palermo. All these ones are in the very center of Palermo, and you can walk from one to the other in one day. So that's the itinerary is designed so you could actually visit them all. The only thing you need to check the opening times and days, because they can vary and they might be a bit short certain times. Some of these places you might want to give them a phone call before going. Now you can see that there's a curtain held up by angels, and there's several images, and then at the center there's boats here, ships, and that's the Battle of Lepanto with children at the bottom, which look like street urchins. So there is a celebration of war, but also the downside of war, poor people, orphans. And Lepanto was a big battle against the Turks, so it's the Christian faith defeating the Muslims, the infidels. This is the main altar with the statues of 2 Jewish heroines and some statues on the top, and a big altar piece with the Madonna and the saints of the Dominican order. This is by Carlo Maratta, which worked a lot in Rome in the 17th century, made a lot of restoration, was a follower of Raphael. You could see in the Madonna and certain colors in the child. It's very Raphaelesque, although it's like 150 years after. And Maratta also restored, for example, restored by repainting some of Raphael's works, like La Farnesina in Rome. And he was from Ancona, but worked mostly in Rome, and of course in Palermo, as you could see. And this is the detail before the Battle of Lepanto, and that's the counterfacade. So that's the wall of the entrance and the exit. These are the side windows, each one of them a different episode at the bottom of the different mysteries, which are the things that you observe during the rosary. That's the description of the rosaries. And then these are Esther and Judith from the Old Testament, right, standing there. And again, they all have different position, turbans and fancy hair, and a number of different clothing and stuff. Judith is on the left and Esther is on the right, if I'm not mistaken. And then the detail are just gorgeous, just great. You see the advantage that Serpotta had in using the modeling the plaster rather than having to sculpt with hard marble, was they could model and give it the shape he really wanted. And those expressions that were key to him, like this suffering expression of this bust peeping out through these are just the parts to support the windows, and just creating an incredible decor, an incredible design, which sometimes Baroque is a bit too much, kind of fills your eyes a little bit. It's like when you eat something that's too sweet, and after a little bit it disgusts you a little bit, and that the same can happen for decoration which is too rich, but it doesn't happen in this case. Now, right in the cloister of the church, the oratory is actually attached to a church. It's like a little praying room attached to a church. And there is the one of the busts, which there's several in Palermo, of Giacomo Serpotta. So this is the artist who created all this decoration. Now, the next one is the Oratory San Lorenzo, which is the one very famous because in 1969, from this church, the famous Nativity by Caravaggio, one of the three paintings by Caravaggio in Sicily, this was actually made in Palermo for this oratory, was stolen. It was a rainy night. The church had just a simple lock, no alarm, no security, no nothing. So somebody just walked in and took it out. It was never found. Rumors said that it's been taken by mafia. Some others said that the painting had been badly cut. It was wet. They end up burning in somewhere in the countryside near Palermo. Some others believe that it's been kept and is in some safe in 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 Switzerland, or is sitting in some of these mafia bosses' um, lounges. I guess we'll never know. There's a replica there, which is as good as it comes, and here you can see it's an incredibly beautiful painting. Is really one of the last Caravaggio. He really mastered the light to an incredible level. Every single detail of the face of the saints, of the Virgin Mary's, and lit it up perfectly. The angel that arrives, the child just lay down there upside down. It's the opposite way we use, because it's the Madonna contemplated in the saints, not us. And it's also the Virgin Mary. She is tired after giving birth, and she's just looking like any other mother, and it's very human. And really here Caravaggio managed to touch certain feelings and certain parts of human soul that had not been touched by history later, and very rarely would have been touched again after him. And this is the the 3D of the oratory, which feels great. I mean, it's an incredible, again, an incredible space, which has this above, under the windows, at the little 3D opening, like a little theater. Now, one of the most popular entertainment that you can find in Sicily still today is the Pupi Siciliani. It's a little theater, uh, 2 feet wide, 3 feet wide, with like little marionettes. And that's the Pupi Siciliani. Mostly they're based on poetry about the conquest of Sicily, about the conquest of Jerusalem. So they're based about Renaissance poems and late Middle Age poems, but they are made with love artistry. And of course, these little images here, they are like a stucco version of the theater, that same concept, that the best way to narrate it, to show with a little theater, with a little drama. And then there's of course the altar of the oratory, the cross, the St. Lawrence up there, the symbol of the, is it here? Yeah, this is the grill. St. Lawrence was grilled alive. That's why the grill is the symbol of St. Lawrence. The inlaid marble was everywhere. Everything is perfect and beautiful. And again, here you can see the Virgin Mary, a few other figures of saints, virgin saints between the windows. And so it's really another incredible representation. That's the martyrdom of St. Lawrence here, with, of course, Jesus up there welcoming him into the heavens. It's really an incredible space. I'm not sure, and this is quite the opposite of what you will have in a praying room even today. Somewhere you go to meditate, where it was pretty like bare and simple. So are the Protestant churches, but you have to meditate, to concentrate on the word, on the message. Here is just the opposite. Here you have to leave your heart open and get all this in, and just get it filled with joy that only art and beauty can give you. And there's a little video I want to play. This is a little courtyard. And this is another bust of Serpotta again. Masterpiece. And then you can see with the drone, it really brings out this effect. The fact that the stuccos are all white, that there's very little gold, makes it very elegant. The gold is just like a little detailing. It's not, overpowering it. It's not covering it. It's not Sometimes all that gold is a bit kitsch, it's a bit, yeah, it looks being wanted to be so rich, it looks a bit cheap in the end. But it's not this is not the case. It's actually extremely elegant. And of course, with the Caravaggio there at the center of the room is really incredible. And look, some of the angels have real instruments. That's another Baroque thing, that you have to think that those angels are real. That's a vision. They have a real, violin in there, a real cello in there. There's a real trumpets. That's a unicorn made of gold. It's really, really an incredible space. Now we keep going further. Promise you four. This is number three, is the oratory of San Rosary attached to the Church of San Domenico. This, as well as the Serpota, there's a lot more gold in here. And you can see the difference. It distracts a little bit. It's not as tidy, it's not as ethereal, it's not that spiritual as the pure white. As the painting there is a 19th century copy of Baroque painting. And then there's this beautiful fresco with the Godfather, with the Trinity basically, and the Saint Rosalina being ascending to the heavens. The Godfather here with all this like gold and gold gilded stuccos. And then some of the details of the little cherubs are incredible here. Taking out all the overpowering gold, you have the details of the babies. They're amazing. Look at this one singing on the real music, on real notes. Again, Baroque wants to trick you to think that everything you see is a marvel vision of something. It's real in another dimension, in a spiritual dimension. So you believe. And then this is just some of the decorative, even the decorative panels are incredible. There's two little chubby children playing, very Baroque again. Then the last one is the oratory of Sant'Agostino. And here you have Sant'Agostino. And you can see the heart of Jesus with the angels around, the clouds, again, all these swirly things. The altars, they are always this bit too much on these altars because there's a use. So the priests like to put a lot of stuff on, but I think the less is more. The nuns here, of course, just a lot of population, especially the nobles, their destiny was to be a nun. So from a very young age, they had to prepare you that monastic life was for many people like the way to do because there was no alternative. The pulpit, and then again, Godfather here. Every single part of this stucco decoration is a sculpture in itself, is a masterpiece in itself. Then, of course, inscription with the angels, the trumpets, and so on. And after the order of Sant'Agostino, we finish with the here is the last church, San Lorenzo, and here we have, I'm sorry, not San Lorenzo, San Domenico. Here we have, this is a large Baroque church right in the center of Palermo. Is also on the image of the tour, and it has the image of San Domenico, the founder of the order. Inside, it's very Baroque from the outside, the facade, with the pinnacles, with the towers protruding, with the saint, but it's not as Baroque inside. It's a bit more sober than the others. And then again, in the cloister, there's Serpota again. That's again our artist. Serpota made the statue of San Domenico, for example, here. Serpota worked exclusively in Sicily, mostly in Palermo, but also in Agrigento, in Alcamo, in other places in Sicily. Now, this tomb is also, this church is probably the second most important church of Palermo. And it's also known as the Pantheon of Palermo because many famous and important citizens of Palermo, artists, architects, and they're buried there. And up to today, so this is the tomb of Giovanni Falcone. For those of you who don't know, in the 1992, this was a judge that was killed by mafia, together with his wife and 5 policemen, while he was driving or being driven from the airport of Palermo to Palermo. They blew up the motorway with 300 kilos, like 600 pounds of explosive. They made a crater in the motorway. And that was one of the worst crimes the mafia have ever committed in the mafia history, and it's made a lot more. And so Falcone is buried there. It's really the symbol of a judge who wanted to fight mafia. And we are going to see a couple more places now. And this is Palazzo Mirto. Let me just see. Palazzo Mirto. Where is it? Yes, so we're still right. So see, this is the San Lorenzo Oratory. Most of the places that we've seen, they're really around the center. Palazzo Mirto is very peculiar because it has been transformed into the kind of museum of Baroque. So from outside, this is the main gate. It's one of the many noble palaces of Palermo. And let me just see if, no, I have to go back. And like you could see inside, it's very richly maintained. It was the mansion of a family called the Filangieri, which had been basically the owners of this palace since the 1600s, and most of the furniture dates back to the 17th, 18th century, some of it to the 19th century. The palace, it's occasionally it's open to the public, and there's a museum, but I think currently it's closed, but every now and then it gets open. One of the really big Baroque features is this like a fountain called Ninfeo in the courtyard that has this kind of illusionistic kind of drop at the back, and is decorated with a number of figures and statues. So that's another element of the very rich Sicilian Baroque. These are the stables. So you can actually, the Chinese room, you can, with the silk and the vases, you can actually experience life of a mansion. Now, Palermo has some amazing and beautiful palaces. Some of them are open, some of them are not very open. Some can be open privately through like an agency or a cultural association or a private guide. And many of them are still owned by the same families, or like, I'm not sure if this one is now owned by the church or who owns this now. No, it's still a private owner that has running the museum. The carriages that they had, so it's really a full dining room. Of course, is the last century or so is not being kept as well. And so you could see the different sitting rooms. And this is how in the 17th, 18th century, 19th century, the few extremely wealthy families of nobility of Sicily and southern Italy lived. Now, as a difference between Sicily and southern Italy compared to, for example, Tuscany or northern Italy or central Italy, is that most nobles, like it happened like in Central Europe, in Northern Europe, the nobles had their lands, their castle, their family house in the countryside. They had a castle or villa, whatever. And sometimes they had more than one. And then occasionally they went to court. They went to the capital, to a court, to see the king. But they didn't live there. They reside in their main countryside mansion, where they took care also of the land, they took care of the farmer or any activity or business they had. That's why when the Industrial Revolution kicked in, some of the early entrepreneurs were actually those nobles, because they had the land, they had the money, and they started that kind of stuff. But this wasn't the case in southern Italy, because the Spaniards, and in general in the Spanish Empire, the king wanted all the nobles to live in the capital so he can control them, and there was a system to keep a grasp on them. There is also based, especially in Naples, to the fact that there were more than one conspiracy where the barons, the nobles, tried to overthrow the king and the crown. So that's the reason. As a result, countryside in southern Italy and in Sicily as well had very little compared to like Veneto region or Tuscany, where there's thousands of villas. Veneto only had over 3,000 villas, which are noble mansion in the countryside. They're very rare in other parts of Italy, especially southern Italy. There might be castles, there might be some palaces in the city center, but villas are very rare. There are some in the outskirts of Palermo we saw last time in Bagheria. Of course, the little altar here in the Palazzo Mirto and a few other, this is a modern one. This is a 19th century bedroom with a French bed. So it's really kind of an experience, a journey into a noble mansion, a noble palace of the past century. This is the logo of the museum, and that's the gate to the palace. And this is like sort of throne room, like a main room here with the silks and the tapestries. I think this is called tapestry room with the beautiful chandeliers. And then this is another palace, which is Palazzo al Guarnera, of which I will speak later when we finish with the last video. And this is the let me just see. Yeah, this is the fountain of the Palazzo Mirto I showed before. Palazzo Guarnera, this is another palace. It's the one when the Leopard, the Gattopardo, was filmed in 1960 movie. I will talk more about that later on. This is privately owned. Maybe the church owns it. So it's occasionally some rooms are open, but not all of them. But you can book a visit, I think. And then there are several other churches, but I wanted to keep this, limited to not like like 5 dozen churches, but there are a few others, Baroque churches in Palermo. But I think the Serpota stuccos, the white one, that really the characteristics of Palermo Baroque that makes it unique. Also, the fact that Serpota only worked in Palermo, so there, if you go into Palermo, you want to see some Baroque. Those are the things that I think you should see first, and that will only take, if you only see the 3 or 4 arteries, it takes only half a day because you can walk from one to another. Now, if you have an extra day, you might want to go to Ponte Pellegrino, to Santa Rosalia, which in 1624 became the patron saint of Palermo. She wasn't patron saint before. She had died centuries before, and her bones have been, kept in a isolated place on the top of the mountain. Now, Monte Pellegrino, and before I put the um, yeah, it's this giant mountain here. The airport is actually on the other side of the mountain. So when you land, you actually looks like you're landing into the mountain in the Palermo Montarais. It's like a rock overlooking Palermo, right, dominating it. And that's where the sanctuary of Santa Rosalia is. Now, in the 17th century, 1600s, where about some of these churches were built, that's also the center of the Black Death of the plague. Hence, people were dying. There were a lot of drama. And this was a place with Santa Rosalia, centuries earlier, had gone in isolation and lived and had died in her 30s as a virgin by meditating and by praying. So she was really a holy person, but she wasn't a saint. And there's 2 stories about that. There's a woman that was ill during the plague, saw her healing her. And so this lady, she got better and saw her in her dreams and went up to the mountain to find her remains. Another version is that a hunter or a shepherd up on the mountain had a similar vision that the city would have been protected by the plague if he had taken the bones down to the city. So he also had a vision of where the bones were. So he found them in a cave where there was water running from the mountain that still is there. And by drinking the water, he was healed and protected from the plague, walked down and healed everybody. And in 1624, 1625, I think in the summer, in July 15, 1625, the plague was over. They made a big procession to her, which they still do up to this day. So ever since then, Santa Rosalia kind of pushed away the other saints that we saw, Cristina, Olivia, Agatha, and the other one, and became the main patron saint of Palermo. This sanctuary was built then. You can see that the cracks in the mountain, this is Santa Rosalia with the roses in her head, Rosalia Rosa, rose. Rosalia is also very popular. Rosalia is very popular name in southern Italy, in Palermo especially, Rosalia. And then around 1630s, this Baroque sanctuary was built. It has a rock, and inside this rock it has a cave. Inside this cave, that's the burial of the remains of Santa Rosalia, which was something to see. And the view is incredible. So it's like a procession you do. People in the past, when it walk up, now of course everybody drives, back then it was kind of a challenge. The mountain is 500-600 meters tall. These are around 400 meters, so over 1,000 feet of height that you have to climb up from sea level from the town of Palermo. Now, after the drone, we have the grotto where you see people are really worshiping, and it's still very active now. A lot of places of worship in Europe, they're kind of tourist attractions. People don't really go there as much. But southern Italy, especially Sicily, they're still hugely popular. Now, in Europe, of course, there's Lourdes and Medjugorje, they're newer places. But this is a place of worship, been a place of worship for 400 years. Some others have been a place of worship for 800 years, 1,000 years. And seeing that there's still so many people, there's still so many pilgrims, it's really touching. Even if you don't believe or believe another faith, or you kind of or believe in no faith, I think it's you can really connect with those feelings of those people there. And also there's a strange collection of gifts called ex voto, pilgrim slave staff, and there's a huge amount of rings, coins, even US dollars of foreign currency, Australian dollars and stuff, Canadian dollars, because Sicily is the region in Italy that had the largest number of emigrants in in Italian history. So it's the region from which people emigrated most and still do today, whether they go to the continent, as they call it, like mainland Italy, especially northern Italy, or whether they go. I have a lot of Sicilian friends, and they all live like. My best man is from Marsala. Lots of my best friends are from Sicily. They all live in Europe. Some live in London, and many live in Milan or Rome. So my best man lives in Rome, and they only go like on holidays, like Christmas, or in the summer, go back to Sicily. Anyway, this is the place where most people, before leaving or returning after a few years being abroad, will come back and make an offering to the saint. So that's also very interesting socially to see. And then here, there's a marble statue of the Santa Rosalia in the moment of her passing, wrapped in gold, because this is Baroque and that's how things are done. Marble, shiny marbles, inlay marbles, silver roses, a golden skull, because she was meditating, golden objects there, a staff, a cross, a crown of roses, a gospel. Sorry. And then, of course, it's solid gold. This was made around 1630. And it's really, the statue, it's similar to other statues. It reminds a little bit Bernini's. Of course, it doesn't have the same pathos, the same dramatic expression, but it's still very, very powerful. And I think this statue embodies the quintessential idea of what Baroque is. That kind of excessive, and that's kind of flashy and blingy kind of artistic greatness. In this case, it's not. It's just about not too much. It could be a little bit much, but it's not. Thank you very much for following this virtual tour about the marvels of Baroque Palermo. Next Sunday at the same time, there will be Syracuse and Ortigia. Now, I'm not sure if this weekend. Yes, next week, this weekend or next one, the time is going to change. I think in Europe this Sunday, and then the Sunday after in North America. So this will mess up a little bit our timings. The timings I will do, the tours will be the same in European time. I will send a reminder, and I'll try to figure out in which part of the world the time will be. One thing that really makes me angry is that I don't understand why Northern Europe, UK or Europe, and the United States and Canada have to change the time going back to the solar time from the legal time. They have to do it at a different weekend. I cannot just agree to do it at the same weekend, which it's just a week apart, so it doesn't make any difference. It make our life easier. I'm sure the other business that have the same issues, but no, they decide to do every year. This has been like for the past four, at least for the past 5-6 years, I've been following this. They do it a different weekend. I don't know if you have any question. Thank you very much, Joanna. And then now I have another little gift on go. I mentioned Palazzo I can't remember the name now. Val Guarnera Gangi. There it is. There it is. It's right in the old Palermo. This mansion here, this was used by Luchino Visconti in 1960. Visconti was a noble from Milan. The Visconti were like at some point ruled Milan, so he was the son of a very important wealthy family. But he was a socialist, a young socialist in 1930s, 1940s during the fascism, and after the war became one of the greatest director of the Italian cinema. It's been one. He has been one of the greatest director in the history of the cinema ever. His movies are incredibly beautiful. The Leopard, Rock on His Brothers, with beautiful young, and I think it's one of the early movies that Alain Delon made. And then it was also one of the first, public figure in Italy that already in 1960s, 1970s were openly gay, which was very hard in 1960s and 70s Italy. And then he has been one of the key figures in Italian history. Now, he made several movies, among them, this one based on a novel called Il Gattopardo, a Leopard, which is the story of the passing from the Kingdom of Italy, from the Kingdom of Naples and Sicily, the Bourbon, into the new Kingdom of Italy, with the nobles and the ruling class and keeping the power anyway. So it was about a failed cultural and social revolution in the democratic sense. And that's what the book was about. It was written by a Sicilian noble, Tommaso di Lampedusa. And then it featured Burt Lancaster, again, Alain Delon, and Claudia Cardinale, I think she is. So I'll play the scene of the ball, which is in this palace, Palazzo Arguarnera, which was used for the filming. It's also been used for other filmings. And the palace can be visited as well. If you're passionate about movie locations, definitely one to see. The movie is incredibly beautiful, and it's kind of sad because it's the idea that a change of political regime, it doesn't mean a better condition for the people, which especially before an election, we should always think a lot about that. And so I, recommend it a lot. So we'll play the bowl scene. There's subtitles as well.
Un valzer. Nemmeno mi fossi messa d'accordo con l'orchestra, principe. Non le pare?
Come?
È un valzer. O forse si è già pentito.
No, certo. Ti prego, scusami.
Sono tutti gentili con me. E io sono felice, zio. Tanto. Tancredi è proprio un amore. E anche lei è un amore, lo sa.
Meno male che Tancredi non sente quello che dici.
Dico davvero, zio. So di doverle tutto. Anche Tancredi le devo. Perché se lei non avesse voluto, certamente finiva che...
Finiva che Tancredi ti avrebbe sposato lo stesso. Devi tutta a te sola.
No, non è vero.
Sì, è vero, Angelica. Nessun Tancredi avrebbe resistito alla tua bellezza.
Avevo sentito dire di lei che era un buon ballerino, principe.
Mi dispiace di averti ancora delusa.
È molto di più di un buon ballerino. Lei è un ballerino delizioso. Veramente delizioso.
Ma sì, è mio padre.
Il prossimo.
La mazurka, allora.
Ci stanno guardando tutti, principe.
Che splendida ragazza che balla con suo padre.
È molto, molto bella.
So you've seen Alain Delon with a thin mustache, and this is the first edition of the book, Gattopardo. It's one of the first reprints, actually, because the book was published in 1958, I think, and this is 1960 print. So I have like also one of the early copies. Okay, thank you very much. I'll see you next Sunday. Of course, you will receive the recording as well. And thank you for joining again. Ciao, I'll see you. Hello, Joanna. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Joanna lives in Australia. So it's, what time is it there now? 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. Okay. Thank you very much for getting up so early. Have a good day. Bye. Ciao, ciao. Buonanotte.